One of our best guesses about the origin of our universe is this: the Big Bang. An unimaginable explosion of energy scattering its contents far and wide. From cosmic dust to stars, planets, solar systems, and eventually to life. Our universe is truly gigantic, and by comparison, we are infinitely tiny. Yet every atom in our bodies has traveled through that large universe, through the hearts of stars, explosions, through death, life, and now is in us. But despite the universe being so physically part of us, it can feel as if we're totally separate from it, floating around in an entirely alien and uncaring cosmos. And so, to escape this distinct sense of separation we feel, humans have searched for meaning as the antidote. Now, some choose religion, others pick science, and others choose a blend of both, or something else entirely. But whichever option we choose, one question pervades them all. What is our place in the universe? This is a tiny section of our night sky. For an idea of size, this is how big the moon looks from Earth by comparison. Now, in September 2012, NASA zoomed in to this tiny box, producing this image, which is the furthest picture into space we have. Now, each one of these lights isn't just a star, it's a galaxy. In fact, this image of just our tiny view of space contains about 5,000 galaxies. And for context, our galaxy, the Milky Way, has an estimated 100 to 400 billion stars within it. However, in the observable universe, there are estimated to be about 100 to 200 billion galaxies. And that's just what we can see. Some theories suggest that what we can observe only makes up the minority of our universe. And beyond that, there are theories like the multiverse theory, suggesting our entire universe may just be one of many, or potentially even infinite universes. So when we compare ourselves to this unimaginable size, it's understandable to wonder where we fit into it, and to feel deeply insignificant or even disconnected from such a large universe. And throughout our history, the original and most popular method to address this feeling was religion. Whilst there's evidence of religious practices such as rituals dating back to 92,000 years ago, religious writings and more complex religions don't seem to have appeared until much later. About 5,500 years ago in ancient Sumeria, some of our earliest records of detailed religious writings appear, such as the descent of Inanna, a Sumerian myth where Inanna, the goddess of love, fertility and war, travels into the underworld, showing us their beliefs in the cyclical nature of life and death. Then, in ancient Greece, gods like Poseidon, Apollo and Zeus represented different aspects of life and nature in order to explain what they didn't understand. This belief in multiple gods, known as a polytheistic religion, appears to be the main type of religion in ancient times. However, religions believing in one central god figure, known as a monotheistic religion, didn't show up until much later. And whilst there's debate on which was the first one of the oldest was Zoroastrianism, around 2,600 years ago, worshipping their god Ahura Mazda. Religions throughout history have almost always placed huge emphasis on living a good, moral life. And over time, religion became the backbone of societies. The biggest religions in the world, therefore, have had huge influence over our worldviews, and where you were born is the most significant factor that dictates which beliefs you are most likely to have. For example, if you're born in the United Arab Emirates, you're far more likely to adopt Islamic philosophies as truth compared to an American with Christianity or a Chinese person with Buddhism. This means that whether it's a story of creation of the universe or perception of the afterlife or something else, where we are born influences what we believe or assume about our place in the universe. However, regardless of your opinions or beliefs, are there any limitations to trying to answer our question in this way altogether? In the 17th century, the Earth was thought to be the center of the universe. This idea is known as geocentrism. Geocentrism was a convenient belief for the Catholic Church, the most powerful superpower at the time, as it played into the idea that we were special and a species created by the divine. Despite this, Italian astronomer and physicist Galileo began recording evidence through his telescope that the sun might be at the center, not the Earth. This idea is known as heliocentrism. Galileo went public with his findings but quickly met fierce opposition from the Catholic Church, to the point that they declared heliocentrism as heresy, a crime punishable by anything from imprisonment to death. Then in 1633, after years of battling the Church, Galileo was forced to renounce his ideas or face the death penalty. And then he was placed under house arrest until he died 9 years later. Galileo's story highlights perhaps the biggest limitation of religion: dogma, which is a set of strict, unchanging, and inflexible beliefs about the nature of reality. Religious dogma is typically based on ancient stories, such as those found in the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, or other religious texts. Now, this isn't to say religion is bad, but dogma and dogmatic beliefs have some huge disadvantages. For example, if a Christian believes Adam and Eve were actually two people, without any evidence of it, and someone comes along like Galileo with proof that they weren't, then they can choose to ignore the evidence because of their inflexible, strict belief that Adam and Eve were actually two people. They discourage critical thinking and actively look down upon any criticisms of their ideas. Secondly, the obsessive belief that your dogma is right, by definition says that other ideas about it are wrong. So when we have multiple dogmatic beliefs in conflict with one another, we create unnecessary conflict between people. Now in history, this has been on a macro scale with wars and a micro scale with debates between people. So dogma itself just prevents us from exploring answers by assuming we already have them. Now for a long time, the religious argument that God created the world and humans was central to the argument for God's existence. So when Charles Darwin came along talking about how we all evolved from primitive species, this religious argument became threatened, as did everybody who believed in it. Now, science is not an enemy of religion. However, it is an enemy of dogma, because science encourages new, evolving understandings of the universe based on evidence, whereas dogma suffers inflexible laws that are constantly being reinterpreted and aren't based on any evidence. So as something new is proven in science, religion is almost forced into adapting how they interpret their holy book. However, science also isn't perfect. For example, if you look up at the moon at night and I ask you what the moon is, you'll rush to tell me various things you know about it. Perhaps you'll give me a more scientific answer, giving details like its distance from the Earth and its role in Earth's climate cycles. Or maybe you'll explain it from a personal level, describing a story of it, or maybe its colour. However, whatever words you use, they are just descriptions about it, and they fail to explain the experience you have when you just look at the moon in silence. Science makes conclusions about nature based on what we can observe. However, when faced with the unobservable, such as the subjective experience and consciousness we all encounter, a clear and distinct gap in current scientific capabilities emerges. So recognizing the limitations of our current scientific understanding opens the door to explore a new story that's emerging. New scientific discoveries, paired with ancient wisdom, paint an exciting new picture for our place in the universe. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna are a few of countless religious leaders throughout history, all said to have been inspired by God, the divine, or whatever name they gave to that idea. Now, let's just suppose for a moment that all of them were divinely inspired. What would happen next? Either they, or the people they influenced, would begin writing about their teachings, recalling their experiences with these people through language. Repeat this over hundreds of generations, going through endless cultural changes, dogmatic shifts, influences, and we get a cosmic game of Chinese whispers, where the message changes slightly with each recollection. Because as soon as they put that divine inspiration into human language, in other words, into concepts, they had to filter their rich experiences into the narrow vessel of language. And so in the same way as me trying to describe a colour to a blind man with just words, concepts and language are limited, especially when dealing with subjective experiences. But to make matters worse, even assuming they did the best job they could of recounting the lessons from these great teachers, upon releasing them to others, each person will interpret it in their own way and take different meanings from it. What you're eventually left with is almost infinite interpretations and arguments over which is best or correct. However, by definition, none of them can be truly correct, because all of them are based on a limited medium. Just as I wouldn't use sound to describe a smell, or taste to describe a sound. For example, how can I be correct about describing what something feels like? You may understand if I say something feels warm, but those words don't actually mean anything unless you have your own experience to compare them to. In other words, they are symbols. So, when we look to answer the question of our place in the universe, what sort of an answer are we expecting? Are we expecting someone to reel off the perfect words in the perfect order? Or are we waiting for the final holy book that will be the final factual truth about our deeper questions? Or are we looking for a new experience or dimension of life? Because by definition, if we want to know our place in the universe, we want more. Now the question is framed to make us think we want more knowledge or more concepts. However, if we look at some of the most popular activities humans enjoy, such as watching films, socializing, drinking alcohol, sports, and so many other things, one of the things that links them all together is that we feel a temporary sense of escape from ourselves and from reality whilst immersed in them. Ultimately, most of our favorite things to do give us a feeling of connection to something other than our repetitive stream of thoughts. So perhaps when we contemplate our place in the universe, what we're really looking for are feelings of connection. To feel like we aren't lonely individuals navigating a hostile and conflicted world, but actually feel a part of it, which is very different to intellectually understanding that we are. But this is hard to do, because the worldview we've been fed is one of separation and disconnection. But a new story is emerging. As science has progressed over the centuries, the view that the universe is an exclusively physical machine has become the normal. This view argues that everything in the universe, including consciousness, can be explained and defined with physical processes. In other words, science operates under the assumption that the laws of physics and chemistry can explain everything in existence. Now, it aims to do this by reducing complex things into smaller things, known as a reductionist approach. Naturally, therefore, science's cutting edge is focused on trying to find the fundamental building blocks of reality. From the discovery of the atom in the early 1800s to finding an even smaller world, the quantum world. Now, I'm not here to present overly wacky theories that the quantum level of reality is magic or apply any other superstition which is commonplace amongst New Age thinkers. Instead, I want to share something far more real, tangible, and exciting. The speed of light is well known as the fastest speed you can travel through time and space in our universe. However, quantum entanglement challenges this. Over 80 years ago, scientists discovered you could link two particles, separate them by any physical distance, and when you made changes to one particle, its linked particle would react instantaneously, regardless of the distance between them. Now, instantaneously means faster than the speed of light, because it implies there was no travel at all. This suggests that they were connected on a deeper level of reality. And in December 2022, the Nobel Prize was given for the confirmation of entanglement. So what's the big deal? Why care about something that we've known about for 80 years? Because entanglement suggests that we might be living in a monistic universe, which means that instead of lots of separate physical objects making up reality like cogs in a machine, a single unified energy field could be causing physical things to appear, which gives an illusion of separation to what is fundamentally one single unified field. So as vast as the visible universe of space and time is, as inconceivable it is in size, entanglement provides evidence that everything in the universe, from the atoms in your body to the most distant star, are connected to one unified phenomena. Now, whilst this area of science is relatively new, the evidence is fascinating and presents a very different view of our connection to the universe than our traditionally mechanical one. However, whilst this is a new idea in science, this idea has been around for millennia. In Buddhism, interconnectedness is a fundamental principle. In Taoism, the Tao is the basic unifying principle that flows through all existence. In Hinduism, Brahman is a universal, infinite, and ultimate reality that underlies and unifies everything in the cosmos. Now, whilst we all know the limitations of interpreting words, we can still see a common theme amongst many great people and traditions of the past. There is a new story beginning, one that shows that we are connected to this universe, and in a sense, we are this universe, just like cells in our body are part of us. But how does this relate to us individually? Well, as many philosophies throughout the ages suggest, the idea that we are separate from the universe is an illusion. This illusion, by definition, makes us feel disconnected and irrelevant. Now, the Buddha said, "Nothing is permanent. Everything is subject to change." And today, science says, energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Now, for us, what this transformation may look like, we don't know. But what many of us identify with, such as our name, race, profession, opinions, etc., we know are temporary, like someone in the late stages of Alzheimer's or someone in a brain-dead state. That person is there, but the elements they spent their whole lives associating with are gone. So placing our sense of completion and connection to the universe in things that are, by definition, temporary is a losing strategy. But as entanglement and the ancient wisdom of our past suggests, there is a potential for a non-physical, unified world which wouldn't necessarily be constrained by time. And the only way in theory we could achieve this feeling of connection would be to learn to experience it, independently from concepts. Now, many religions are built on ideas of death and the afterlife, almost all of which express the idea that life is eternal. This would only make sense from a non-physical perspective. And so I ask you this: what is your place in the universe?